Welcome to the 5D Codes podcast, end of February 2026 edition. This is Sarah. It's been a while. If you are a regular listener and wonder what happened to the RSS feed, well, it went on a little hiatus and it's now back fully on the air. And it's always been on YouTube, by the way. YouTube is a great place to jump over and jump in the comments thread and check out my shorts with my video content. But that aside, I have, maybe you have too, been in major process and integration mode. This month, whenever you're listening, by the way, is the right time. You're on the same frequency, right? And that's kind of the theme of this podcast. We are always in alignment. Even when it feels like things are chaotic and frenetic, we are in alignment, because a big piece of this human journey, this soul having a human experience, is experiencing polarity, realizing that God creates it all, from good, bad, and ugly to bliss, sensual pleasure, and harmony, and everything in between, right? It's not even about finding that gray area, that middle path, as the Buddhists talk about. It's just embracing it all as part of this dance that we're here to experience, because in this realm, the thickness of polarity is the gateway to freedom. It is the gateway to freedom. So I'm working on my first book, and this process has not come easy, because I've been I would say even trying to write a book since I was in my 20s. And I would get to a certain point, maybe a couple chapters in, and I would just hit a wall. And then it didn't feel like it resonated. Or I went back and looked at it and I'm like, man, that's like ego drivel. You know, this is like me trying to force it. This is the challenge and the blessing of this human experience. We have to hit the wall. We have to hit the wall. And, you know, I hate to be bearer of bad news to your ego, but at some point, your ego has to just wave the white flag, put its hands up, get on its knees, even prostrate to the ground and surrender and say, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm not even going to say pardon my French on that one. I don't know what I'm doing. I thought I was trying to manipulate and control because I was scared shitless. Okay, we're just going to be raw and real in this one. I was scared shitless. And I'm talking from my own experience, but I know I'm talking to you too, because I guarantee no matter how calm and cool and collected you have trained yourself to be, underneath that, there's a layer of primal fear. There's a layer of primal fear. And if we look at the human system from an energetic perspective, through the chakras, through the energy centers that move through the spine, at the base is the serpent, is the root, the Muladhara chakra starts in the perineum and it goes down. So like the whole lower body represents the part of the large intestine, the legs, the feet. This is our grounding, centering space. But that is the primal instinct, right? That's our survival instinct. That is the primal brain, the reptile brain. We all want to be safe and secure. And part of what I have been integrating, processing through this past month has been survival instinct. I don't know about you, but I have been in survival mode for a long time. Now, survival mode doesn't just have to be physical material world. Survival mode, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy, I'll bring in my psychology training. And this is, I think that bridging Western and Eastern systems, here's the polarity again, is part of the dance, right? Integration. It's all connected. It's all one. You can't have one without the other. We need each other, right? West needs the East. Holistic philosophy needs that scientific brain. Got the right brain and the left brain for a reason. The logical side, the creative side. So we have this desire for safety and security, right? Maslow's hierarchy, food, clothing, shelter. He breaks it down to like the basics. And yeah, for myself, there has been some financial insecurity, which has affected sometimes how much food I can buy at the grocery store. Can I get the organic, or do I have to go for the inorganic fruit or vegetables? Shelter. I'm still, in this space, the apartment my friend has gifted my daughter and I, which is, smaller. It's like a tiny house. It's like smaller than we would prefer some days. But in between this cozy apartment nesting that I'm doing, I'm getting these house sits, which has been my financial bread and butter. And the houses that I'm being asked to sit in are gorgeous, So this is the polarity dance. It's like I'm being gifted, and my daughter is too, these spacious, gorgeous places to unwind for a few weeks, even a month, at one point, 6 weeks at a time this past year. And then we come back to our little nook. And it's like this back and forth polarity dance. Okay, this is a metaphor. I'm sharing this as a metaphor. So whatever it is in your life that has felt like, and it doesn't have to feel like food, clothing, shelter, connects to the primal brain, connects to, I feel so insecure. This could be a relationship, or relationships. It's like this relationship is harmonious, and then it becomes really stressful, and then it's harmonious, and it just keeps going back and forth. And this whole process can be really exhausting. So what I've learned from myself, and this honestly has happened in my relationship with my daughter as well. So this dance connects to the home situation. I've learned not to attach. Okay, I go back to my small apartment, and then I go house sit in like a little mansion, and then I go back to my small apartment, and then I house sit in another big house. How can I be in both situations and stay in that inner space, right? This intrinsic space that feels grounded no matter what. No matter whether I feel rich or poor, it's all a mindset. How can, when my daughter's upset at me and there's tension in our relationship, how can I stay grounded and centered? How can I stay or keep my nervous system regulated? I've talked about that in several podcasts. And that's like a buzzword term now. And I'm so happy because, teaching yoga and mindfulness for 20 plus years, it was way back in 2005 when I started. Wow, 21 years now. That's insane. It's like a blip. Feels like a blip in time, which is very much soul embodied timing, because time doesn't exist, right? In the mind it does, but in the soul it doesn't. But back in 2005, it was like this new thing. There were about, I would say I could count the yoga teachers on my fingers, less than 10 teachers in Rochester, New York when I started teaching. That's how I befriended my good friend Marla, who's a chanting teacher. And Marla Pelletier, if you want to look her up, someday she will do, I think, workshops worldwide. Right now she's raising 5 kids, but she started getting into mantra, and singing kirtan, just to kind of cope with motherhood and the intensity of that. And when we started teaching together, it was this new thing, it was like, what is this peace of mind? What is this, relax your nervous system terminology, and how do you do that? And now everybody's aware. And I know I'm being extreme in overgeneralizing here, but this episode is going to touch on the polarity, right? So it isn't an all or nothing dance. And yet in some ways it is. We have to embody that all or nothing through simple acceptance. And I say simple because this is tripping up the ego, because the ego's like, yeah, it's so easy. I'm just going to chill. And like, wow, I feel really frustrated when I just came back to my apartment a couple days ago after being at a house sit for a couple weeks. And I felt really grumpy when I first came back. Like, oh God, I have to be in this space. And, I don't have a nice view to look out at, my window when I'm having my coffee in the winter. In the summer, it's nice because I can go out in the backyard with my cat, and just kind of feeling resentful and grumpy. Like, oh, it's not like that house was. And I had to just let myself process through it, Back, I would say 20 years ago, I was forcing myself to spiritually bypass. I was in denial. I would actually beat myself up for having a negative thought, right? So I would say, oh, no, that's not Zen. That's not yoga teacher of me. I have to be grateful. And what I was doing was just repressing all this frustration. And what happens when we do that? It comes out in other ways. We project it out in some way, shape, or form. And for me, I struggled with depression for many years on and off, and I still have trouble with the seasons. And that's part of why I had to kind of hibernate this month, because I was feeling funky until last week. It's funny, when I surrendered, I said, you know what? I have seasonal depression. I admit it. It's been gray here nonstop for months and months and months. It's been super cold. It was like negative degrees. I'm in North America, so Fahrenheit. And it was just, I was so grumpy about it. I'm so sick of bundling up and dressing like as my daughter says, I dress like a kindergartner. It's like, I'll bundle up. And I look like a puffalump when I'm outside. I'm a summer baby. I love summer. I can wear my boho clothes. I'd rather walk barefoot. And then I wear my big earrings. And in the winter, I wear so many accessories that I can't even wear earrings because they get stuck in my scarves and hats and whatnot. Okay, so there was me complaining. And I just let myself do it. And then, you know what happened? I accepted my grumpiness. I accepted my depression. And my friend says, you know what? I have this sun lamp, Sarah. Do you want it? I think, I complained to him in one moment. I was like, yeah. He's like, I'm not using it. And I'm like, damn, I forgot. For years, I used, a sun lamp in the winter. I've been doing the infrared sauna, joined a gym for that purpose. And, that was one thing that I hadn't integrated this year or last year. And as soon as I used it, the first morning, I felt my serotonin increase. I was like, whoa, I feel more energy. I feel happier. It was so simple, And then, of course, I spent some time beating myself up in a much kinder way than I used to do. But I let that happen, what I've learned, I'm going to be careful offering advice. What I've learned is just to let the tape roll in my mind. Okay, there's Sarah beating herself up. And in that space, when I'm watching it like a movie, I don't attach to it. It's like I'm not mean to myself like I used to be. So 4 or 5 days in of using this sun lamp, and I'm taking some supplements to help with some hormonal changes I'm going through, because in all openness, I'm 47, going to be 48 this summer, got some perimenopause symptoms going on. And I was really fighting taking any hormones. I had an IUD and I had that taken out, and that had a little hormone. And my OB recommended progesterone. And I finally said, okay. So I start the sun lamp, I start the progesterone this week, and I started some herbs for perimenopause. Is it one thing? Is it the other? Maybe it's all of the above. But I noticed this morning, as you can tell, I'm talking fast, I have much higher energy. I feel happy. Isn't that crazy? And another gift this morning, the sun was shining brightly. It's not now, but my cat went outside. She was happy. She was purring. She was on top of the car like she likes to do in the summer, soaking in the sun. I let myself sun gaze for about 10 seconds. And all of that feels like such a gift, such a gift. The only way I'm able to experience gifts now is when I experience the curse first. This is the polarity dance. I have to let my emotions process through. I have to do it. And we all do it differently. We all do it very differently. So I'm going to just offer this out because this is my process. And if you're drawn to listen to this podcast, we're resonating on some frequency together. I'm very into personality systems. This works for my brain. I'm an intellectual processor. And for years, I honestly fought this because I would have friends that, personality system speaking, would be more somatic processors, let's say, less intellectual. And as they would talk to me about their process, I would think, oh my God, I'm doing it wrong. Again, there's the beat myself up thought process. Let me try to do it this way. And I tried to do all these somatic practices and push my thoughts away. And what did that do? Well, eventually backfired. That blew up. I projected it out, often in my relationships, and felt really unhappy with myself. So I recently got this book from the library on moon signs. I've been studying astrology for a while, especially the moon sign, because that's our emotional barometer. That's our emotional processing center. And I let me tell you, it was a game changer for me. Years ago when I learned about my moon sign, I'm a Gemini moon, which is an air sign. And, Gemini is the twin. So here's the polarity dance. This is why I'm a good chronicler of this process. So this book, it was funny. Went to the library website because I'll always go for the library books first, right? If I can't find something in the library, I'll get it on thrift books or something. But they had a moon sign book, and it was like in the adolescent department, which is kind of funny. I'm like, okay, good. It's written, for teenagers. It's going to be maybe written in a more fun way, a more basic way, maybe more playful. And so when I read the section on the Gemini moon, honestly, we cannot put ourselves in a box. Just like in the therapy world, when I was a therapist, I hated the DSM. I hated giving people diagnoses because nobody fits 100% in any box, in any diagnoses. Nobody fits 100% in any personality system definition, right? There's many versions of a Gemini moon. So as I'm reading it, I'm not attaching to every word like I used to in my teens and 20s when I read something like, oh my God, I'm going to beat myself up because I'm not, Gemini moons are supposed to have a lot of friends and I'm somebody that has like a few close relationships. Is something wrong with me? No, I just bypass that. I'm like, well, okay, that's the general definition. But here's me. I know the core of me at this point. And instead of trying to change myself, I'm actually just allowing myself to just be, and I'm just watching myself. And in that space, that's where the freedom starts to happen, So the interesting, what hit me, I guess, about the Gemini moon was that, and I'm sharing this because there's a part of you that integrates, that is resonating with this and is integrating it, I should say. We process intellectually, and it said in there, most likely there's some air in your chart if you're listening to this, that you and I, we need to talk out our feelings. We need to write out our feelings. And how interesting, because those are the two ways that I feel most at home with myself. So I'm dictating my book. So essentially I'm talking and writing at the same time. I'm dictating my book out in a Word document or with ChatGPT if I want to copy edit it. And I feel like in that process, I've had all of these revelations come up, and some stuff that feels like really old stuff connected with my relationship with my mother is coming up in my psyche and integrating. And last week I had a lot of emotional release, and actually had a conversation with my mother where I just thanked her. I was like, wow, I know I was really, really hard on you for a lot of my younger years. I would say up through my late 20s, maybe even early 30s. And I'm sorry. Motherhood has taught me a lot about what this role's like, right? And the perception of, with my daughter, a teenager versus the perception of parent of a teenager is very, very different. And there was so much that I blamed on my mother. And in that moment, she was like, wow, I received it. She's like, I really feel like I could have done some things better. And in that moment, I was like, Mom, I accept you for who you are. That was basically it. And I started crying, and I could feel her, and this was via the phone, feel her heart open. She was like, wow, I'm going to really receive that compliment. Thank you so much. Because, I know she still has a very tense relationship with my two siblings that are alive. One sister that passed away, that when she died at the age of 20, Rebecca, and her birthday was just a few days ago, February 24th. Love you, Rebecca. Had a very tense relationship with my mother, and, never got to heal that karma when she passed. And so it's almost like me healing that karma with my mom has helped her with Rebecca. That's just the intuitive sense that I get, because Rebecca and I were very much like twin souls. And when I say twins, like the Gemini, we were polar opposites. So where she was sun, I was moon, literally as a Cancer, which is interesting. Cancer's represented by the moon. And Rebecca had a very sun-like personality. And that was really, really hard for me growing up. And I felt like I went through, it felt like the heroine's journey, lots of dark nights of the soul, lots of self-doubt, lots of jealousy, because she got so much attention as an actress, as an extroverted personality. And what has that taught me, at the age of 47? How to love. all aspects, how to love the polarity dance, how to love the parts of me that might be jealous, that might feel like not enough, and how to see my gifts, as a writer, as somebody that likes to reflect quietly, as an introvert that processes sometimes in an extroverted way like this, sharing with the public in a podcast. But the dance that we are all engaging in this human experience is so unique. So studying moon signs could help you in some way. It could give you some light bulb flashes. And there's a website called astro.com, which is a great way to just do your free chart, find out what your moon sign is, and then from there, explore. And I can put the name of the book that I'm reading in the description for the podcast. I always do add a nice description there with a link to other things. So check that out if you want to jump in and explore more. Because, I like to give detail, but we all have a different way of processing. We all have a different bandwidth, right? So you might not listen to the whole podcast episode because you might not need to, And this is something that I've learned too with this polarity dance. I still go to Al-Anon meetings online once in a while, as I feel like the healing of the codependent people pleaser is an ongoing process. And the 12-step program is just so wonderful. And I used to force myself to sit through the whole meeting because sometimes people can trauma dump. I was a therapist and I left that profession for a reason. I definitely had compassion fatigue. I definitely felt like my psyche was just overloaded. So now when I start to feel like my psyche is getting overloaded, I jump off the meeting, and I don't feel guilt or shame. Actually, I feel there's a sense of self-honoring, like, good, I listened to myself, Who expects me to be at the whole meeting? If somebody in that group has an expectation, that they're impressing upon me, that's their stuff. That's not mine. I need to take care of myself first. And this is a very strong lesson that parenthood has taught me as well recently, parenting a teenager that's just going through a lot of her own emotional stuff right now. There's moments when I know I just need to step away. I need to go for a walk. I'm feeling overloaded. I am dysregulated, and I have a bandwidth. When that bandwidth is passed, I know I'm going to react, right? I know I'm going to be dysregulated, and that might come out in a sour way with whoever I'm around or towards myself. And this has been a really powerful lifelong lesson. And I think it will always be. One thing that I have really come to integrate is that I'm always going to feel like a beginner. Like with yoga, when I used to teach yoga, the more I practiced yoga, the more I felt like a beginner. I could never, ever say I'm an expert because there's always something to learn. And I always feel like I'm starting at ground zero. I'm in kindergarten, every class. Not every teacher says that, Some people have a lot of arrogance. That's their stuff. And for a while, I did too, I think. I knew a lot of the philosophy, and instead, I was like imposter syndrome. Instead of admitting when I felt like an imposter, or, I felt like I was just a fool, I wasn't integrating stuff. I would just talk the talk, and I would, hold my head up and say, well, I know all this philosophy, and that pride hurt only me, Nobody is judging you but you. I'm just going to emphasize that. And I can say that out loud to everyone. Nobody is judging you but you. Because all those judgments that you feel like are coming at you, that's other people's shit. You're literally a mirror for their own self-hatred, their own disconnection with God, their own disconnection with who they truly are. This has been one of the most powerful, freeing truths that I'm still learning to integrate. And I know this can coincide with the decade that I'm in and stepping into the, late 40s, early 50s. And I wonder if there's a hormonal component too, because this can happen for men. They say that men go through their own sort of like hormonal changes that can correlate with, the female menstrual cycle monthly. And a lot of women have said, and I can't speak for men, but I think it correlates, that when they get to their 60s, they don't give a fuck what other people think. That there's this sense of letting go. There's a sense of just being the sovereignty, sense of sovereignty that's not forced, that's just almost naturally evolved. The polarization that exists in spirituality right now, the fact that people, their spiritual capitalism is a thing, think they can buy enlightenment. They can buy a express train to sovereignty. That can be prideful thinking, And I engaged in this a few years ago, joining a mystery school, and I was really miserable in my job as a mental health coach. I got out of therapy, then I was a coach, and I worked for an app. I won't name the name, but at first I thought it was a cool job because it sounded cool, and we had cool benefits. We had a wellness fund, a couple $100 a month that we could use for things like I used it for massages or getting a membership to this infrared sauna place, supplements, that kind of thing. But then realized that was it was like icing over shit, It was like that was a distraction because the job itself was really stressful and unmanageable. I was not just talking to one person, coaching one person at a time. Sometimes I was coaching 5 people. It was all through a chat room, in different text threads at once. And sometimes you had somebody that might have an emergency, might have like suicidal ideation. So it started to ride on me. And I started to get these headaches, migraines, and I couldn't be on the screen for very long. And so, my body was a signifier. Enough. This is not in alignment. During that time, because of my pride, I was like, I got to force my way through this. I know I'm a healer. I used to have a Reiki practice, and some of that in my own path was me trying to control, spiritual bypassing. I have a negative emotion. Let me do Reiki on myself. So I joined a mystery school while I was working this job. And for a while, it felt good. It was like, it was adding more icing to the shit. Okay, I've got a thick layer of icing, so I can't see or smell the shit, right? And then it just started to unravel eventually. The shit started to stink, the icing started to melt. I'm using this intense metaphor for a reason. And it happened through relationships in the mystery school, actually. Through, the teacher started to show his true self, as in he was spiritually bypassing and manipulating money-wise. It was like the program was a 3-month program. When it finished, he started to create a new program that was even more money. And I saw the truth. I'm like, this guy's just in it for the money. And what was happening was people were having these temporary highs, and this can happen even in yoga or any spiritual workshop. And then it started to wear off. And it's like, well, he realized, I know I'm a commodity. I'm a product. People want more. So how can I give them more? Instead of encouraging them to be sovereign. The path that we're living is a messy one, okay? It's full of shit. And the shit stinks sometimes, whether we candy coat it or not. We try to candy coat it, that might work for days, months, for some of us years. And then it just starts to get foul. And we have to face the foulness in that space. It's like going from, these huge house sit homes to my little apartment. We just see it for what it is. Okay, this to my ego feels good. This to my ego feels bad, right? This feels like I'm winning, and this feels like I'm losing. Look at the game. Look at the ping pong match. So the Gemini Moon, back to the moon sign, has taught me that I can't get away from the polarity dance. In fact, the way in is the way through. I have to embrace the dance of polarity in order to find that inner freedom that I call sovereignty. A lot of people call it sovereignty, or, how to be your authentic self, which is integrating your soul with your ego avatar. You can't bypass the ego. And that's what spiritual bypassing is. And for years, I tried to do that. It was actually a therapist that told me, and he wrote a very spiritual book. I saw him for a brief period after a breakup many years ago. It was going on about, my ego, this and that. He said, Sarah, you can't bypass the ego. As long as you're in this body, you're going to have an ego. You might as well befriend it. You might as well just explore it and see it for what it is. And my way of doing that has been personality systems, human design, Western astrology for myself that has resonated, the Enneagram, just to name 3 that have really, really helped me understand myself and other people too, people that are close to me, that in moments like my mom, where I really struggle with their choices, the way their personality is responding, or trying to seemingly manipulate a situation, it's helped me accept, okay, this is just how my mom is. I know I can't change her, and the more I try to fight her or manipulate her to be the way I want her to be, the more tension there's going to be in our relationship. So how do I just embrace her? Like my mom likes to gossip. So if I call her, I know at some point she's going to talk about somebody. How can I just accept that? And I used to try to steer it in a positive direction. And the more I accept it, to be honest, the less she gossips. It's really, really wild. So now I'm live processing with you. I'm going to bring this into my relationship with my daughter, because my daughter can be very critical of me and her father and very sour sometimes. And I hate that, to be honest. And I fight it. And that has made the tension worse. So I'm going to try this with my daughter when I see her later today. Just letting her be. Let her rise in her discomfort and accept it. Just like I accept my mom's gossip. Because when I accept it, I know with my mom, and it's taken me 20 plus years. I mean, I started working on my relationship with my mom in my 20s to just accept her for who she is. Because when she used to start to gossip about somebody, I would get so disgruntled inside. And I would say something like, why are you talking about this person? Or sometimes I would participate in it, and then I would feel really guilty and ashamed of myself. Or I would try to manipulate her and steer her in a positive direction or change the subject. All of that was my ego, right? All of that was me trying to control it. As I notice, we're going to talk frequency now. What happens is, this is where the soul integration comes in. My heart opens, right? Think about this in terms of frequency. As I started the podcast with my Koshi chimes, I got really into playing in my singing bowls last summer, so we can use that metaphor as well. It's like, you have a disharmonious tone, and then the moment that I open my heart, I'm like, hi, Mom. I'm talking to her from that place of dinging my singing bowl, that high frequency tone. Her energy merges with that. And I'm not doing it intentionally, to be honest. Sometimes I used to prep myself and say, okay, I have to be in a really good space to talk to my mom. I've got to be, calm and relaxed and in my highest frequency. That was me trying to manipulate. Now I get a ping, like a psychic ping. Oh, I'm going to call my mom. And every time I do, it's my heart telling me to do it. So as soon as we start talking, our hearts are syncing up. It's like the heart chakra tone. We're dinging that singing bowl, and we're merging, How am I going to apply this to my daughter? Stay tuned. I'll share it in another episode. Because I think that's one of the harder dances, the mother-daughter dance. It's much easier now that I'm not living with my mother, I'm a little bit more detached, and, I'm an adult and she's an adult, but the mother of a teenager that I am now, and, we're living in the same house in close quarters, it's more delicate. But it's exactly what I need to experience in my life right now. That, my friend, if you can take one thing from this podcast, take that wisdom. It can be so hard to stomach this. I know it has been for me. When things are sour and ugly and shitty, it can be so hard to say, oh, but it's exactly what I need. Because you can do that from a spiritual bypassing tone, like, oh my God. You can say it in a way that's almost like passive aggressive towards yourself, gaslighting yourself. Oh my God, you need to be, like, you got the whip. You need to be Zen right now, Sarah. Okay, so accept this. Instead of being dominatrix with myself, how can I just realize that there is no against, that the current of life is constantly in sync with us, whether it's good or bad or anything in between. And in moments when I hate the current, then let myself hate it. Then hate it with all my might, And I know that there's going to be another swing of the pendulum, and the current is going to be super awesome, like this morning, with my high mood. And eventually it's going to find its way to the middle, right? And then I know it's going to swing bad and then good and then middle, it's just going to keep going. How can I just allow everything to be as it is? You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do a damn thing. You don't have to mix sweet frosting to cover the shit. I mean, you could. Watch yourself doing it, though. And that's not to say that, my ego doesn't want to sugarcoat my shit now and again. It certainly does. Because I swing in these phases of guilt or shame around having certain emotions. And the key to the inner freedom is just watching it. Just watching it. My yoga teacher in my 20s, when I did my 500-hour training in Vancouver, talked about this book, I Am That. She would say things, and it was like she was watering this soul seed in me. She was this Israeli woman. She's like, Sarah, you need to read I Am That. That book has the wisdom that will benefit you. And it's funny, I think I got the book. I think I put it under my pillow for a while. It's really thick. Got it from the library. I never bought a copy. Went to this bookstore in Vancouver and picked it up and skimmed through it. And I got some downloads just holding it, just looking at it, just skimming through it. The premise of it is, this yogi gets enlightened by just observing himself. I mean, he's Indian, and they all have a guru. His guru told him, just watch yourself. Just watch yourself. That is it. There's a reason that personality systems exist, right? I was born July 2nd at 6:30 p.m. in Rochester, New York, right? All of that information gets plugged in on a certain date. Well, if you can figure out my age, what year. And then, it's scientific. Connected to that science, though, there's mysticism, right? We got the right and left brains playing with each other. There is information about my ego avatar. As I watch my ego avatar every day and understand it even intellectually through the systems, I don't get as attached to its dance. It's like, okay, I know. I'm going to have ups and downs. I'm going to feel wishy-washy about things because that's very common with how I process the twin, right? The polarity dance. I really want this and I also want that, Instead of trying to manipulate or change that, just watch it. And I know for myself, and I know if, again, feel into this for you. There was a period in my 20s when my friends would call me flaky, actually. Now I know it was my Gemini Moon because I would be so fickle. It was hard for me to make a decision. Decisions can be really, really hard for Gemini moons. Now I just use my intuition. I'm like, and I see, like, there's always going to be that part of me that doubts, that's just a part of my personality. Was this the right thing? Or I could have chosen this and gone down this path. Well, what did I do when they said stuff like that? I beat myself up. And I would try to be very one-sided about things. And it just created this wrestling match with myself, And then I started attracting friends and partners that didn't accept me for who I was. Why? Because I wasn't accepting me for who I was. I was trying to force myself into a certain way of being. So what's happening in the external world is reflecting where we are with ourselves. What if you did just allow yourself to be fickle? What if you just allowed yourself to feel the angst and the frustration about whatever it is in your life that is making you upset, that is making you grumpy, that is making you feel like a victim? We're all going to feel like victims. We've all been there. And that's a dance that I've been in, even with my living situation. And then I get into a space, right? Polarity dance, where I'm like, oh my God, I feel so blessed that I'm living next door to my best friends, that I don't have to pay rent right now, that I have somebody to watch my cat for free when I'm pet sitting. There's another layer to this. There are certain activations that we can allow ourselves to experience that help us get into the soul frequency. And I've learned that this is not, you can't do this by manipulation either, but just pay attention to what brings you joy. It's like tapping into that inner child. Personality systems can be another clue. So my sun sign is a water sign, okay? See what your sun sign is, what element it connects with. Water is always a cleanser and a clear and a heart opener for me. I don't like swimming per se, but I like taking baths. I like going in hot tubs and being by the water, like big bodies of water. So I was in the bath the other night when I was at this house that this woman has a really nice big bathtub. You can just spread out. I'm very tall. Like I can spread my legs out and lie back and even dunk myself underwater. I had Epsom salt in the bath and I had some candles. And I was processing some frustration and, letting these resentments move through my mind. Oh, I wish I could have a house like this. And I wish this, my daughter and I had a more smooth connection right now and this and that. I immersed myself underwater a few times, came up, held my breath, went under for a little bit, came up. And then I just laid back and just looked at what's going on in the movie in my mind. And all of a sudden, this wave of gratitude washed over me. I was like, wow, I'm so grateful. Like this bathtub, I feel like a queen right now. Having this house with the cats, we were watching 4 Persian cats that I loved. My daughter's content here. We're having, an okay evening together. And I was thinking about my friend watching my cat and how lucky I am to have him. Just feeling gratitude. And then even my apartment, thinking about my apartment and how I have all these plants and I have things set up in a way that feels comfortable to me. And I'm like, wow, how interesting. I was literally a few moments ago just in this polarity dance, feeling cursed. And now I'm feeling blessed. And no matter how much money is in my bank account, this is what true wealth is. Like, I feel like so wealthy right now. And I was just soaking, marinating, literally in the bathtub, in that vibration. Water is one way that my frequency can open and expand. But I know that when I force myself to do it, like, oh, I'm feeling disgruntled, I've got to take a bath. There's still a battle happening, I didn't think about taking a bath at night to make my frequency boost. My muscles were sore. It was cold out. I was just feeling like, this will feel good right now, right? It was just kind of a very basic need, more physically focused need. And then I had this spiritual experience. Not to say it doesn't help to make a list. So here's a little piece of homework here if it resonates for you. Always do it if it feels fun. Embrace your inner child. What brings you joy? What things, people, places, things, experiences in your life open your heart? It could even be foods. We have those like comfort nostalgia foods. Warm cup of tea, coffee, sitting by the fire. For me, even simple things like when it's cold out in the winter, I was really enjoying watching the cats watch this cat TV on YouTube. And I would put on these nature scenes with birds eating bird seed, and sometimes they would go up to the TV. But I was getting my little dose of nature too with the TV, looking outside, having my tea or whatever, looking at the snow on the ground and just feeling cozy. Because I love nature, I love animals. And I realize, you can get creative with how we integrate these things. It doesn't have to be, I have to push myself, get all my layers on, like a kindergartner, go out in the snow, be grumpy about it, take a 5-minute walk if it's below freezing, and come back in. I have done that a lot, and it has made me feel much better than just sitting in the house grumbling. But I could also stay cozy and find ways to integrate that too. Experiment. There is no expectation that's being impressed upon us except the expectation of our ego mind. The soul doesn't judge. God, the oversoul, the universe, all that is, call it what you will, it's just pure beingness. It's a blank canvas, And that is something that the ego mind cannot conceptualize. It just absolutely can't. So full soul integration is an emotional experience, is a frequency-based experience. That's not to say the intellect doesn't come into play. That's not to say we don't use the mind. Why am I doing this podcast? What did I tell you about the Gemini Moon? We process verbally, and I think there's a lot of other moon signs that do as well. If you're an air sign, your sun can play into this too. Most likely, talking it out, writing it out can be very, very, very helpful. And words have codes. There is a frequency behind words. Images too. So, my friends, things can be good and things can be bad. And there's a lot of gray area. There's always lots happening in between all of that. There's a high and there's a low. So we're going to come back to the pendulum. Just want you to imagine that pendulum swinging from full soul embodied integration to that fear-based, I want to control, I don't trust life. It's like Star Wars. It's like Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. I want to take over the world. That's the ego, because I don't trust that there's a bigger plan. I don't trust that if I just let go, that things will all fall into place and that I will matter. Yes, you do matter, right? And the other side of that, as we tap into the light, deepest light of our soul, we want to control nothing. It's just complete surrender. Surrender. You can't get to the surrender without seeing and embracing the light. And I'm going to end with one last metaphor that is a show on Netflix called The OA. And I rewatched again when I was at this house sit recently. And I saw it a few years ago. And it spun me for a soul loop. It was, life-changing and validating in many ways, unlike aspects of reality that I have really felt exist, or, like the multiverse theory, multiple timeline theory, call it what you will. But there's a frequency in that show that touches into this. And if you haven't seen it, I don't want to give it away fully, but I just want to say the main character, this group of people kind of travel in soul groups. A lot of us are craving our soul tribe right now. And so when they dimension jump, all of these souls are there in this other dimension as well, in different characters, right? Well, there's this one character that she's trying to get away from, the main character. And she can't. No matter what she does, she can't get away. And she meets another soul traveler, and the soul traveler tells her, this person's your shadow. You're not going to be able to get away from him. You have to integrate him. You have to accept your shadow. Okay, I feel like that is like the most potent truth of that show, at least for me. Without light, there is no dark, and vice versa. We all have a shadow, whether it is a person in our life or maybe just our own freaking mind. Most likely it's both because that person in your life is reflecting something in your freaking ego mind. Let it happen. Entertain the doubts alongside the certainty, make space for both. There's a reason that my daughter is my daughter. No matter how different we are, there's also a lot of similarities between our personalities, but there's moments when I'm like, oh my God, I just can't connect with her. Like, I feel like she is my nemesis, She's triggering me to no end. How can I change this? I can't. I just accept it. I accept it. And you know what that has been doing for me? That has been helping me integrate and heal that younger part of me that felt the same thing about my own mother. Oh my God, she's my shadow. She's my nemesis. I had those same thoughts. It's not shifting my relationship completely with my daughter right now. It's shifting it with my mother. It's super wild how this happens. But we're all connected. I mean, I feel like the three of us are in a soul thread here. Maybe in other dimensions or realities, we play different roles to each other, but there has been this interweaving connection. So play with that in your life. Watch the OA and see what stands out if watching shows or see stories help you process. Most likely if you're listening to a podcast, they do on some level. Or maybe there's another show that you love. If so, share it with me in the comments. Because I really do process through story. And right now, my auditory processing, visual and auditory, are the strongest for me. I don't read as much anymore, to be honest. As a writer, that's just kind of a funny thing to say. But I dictate my book. It's definitely going to be an audiobook form too when it comes out. So last thing, I want to just touch in on what I was talking about there. Between my daughter, my mom, and I, notice if there is a soul thread in your life. There's something about that triad relationship where, your connection or disconnection with one person actually impacts your relationship with somebody else. It could be a family line connection. It could be, some other type of connection. But this is how we see how we are all connected. We'll call it the karmic threads. You can't buy your way out of it. You can't manifest your way out of it. What I even learned in the healing world, you can't heal your way out of it. I'm not knocking energy healers, but I hit a wall with that. And I got to a place where I'm like, this isn't resonating anymore. This is spiritual bypassing. This is just putting icing on the shit. If I am meant to be sick right now, the sickness has something to tell me. And as I process it through, as I have been recently, I will integrate. And I'll feel better. And I'll leave that for another podcast. I think it would be really good to talk about physical ailments and how that is part of the spiritual awakening process. For now, enjoy your dance with polarity. Jump in on that moon sign train or open up to a way to process the polarity dance within yourself that resonates for you. Because you and I, my friend, while we might have some similar threads, are very different. And there's a reason that we are connecting. We are all pieces of the oneness puzzle. I couldn't exist without you. You couldn't exist without me. And while we may not come into contact with every soul on this planet, all these billions of souls, our dance together, yours and mine, just in this listening space, is creating a ripple effect. What is being triggered and awakened and watered in your consciousness with my words, I can actually feel the vibration of listeners that are listening now and in the future. Isn't that wild? We are impacting the collective. There's a reason that Carl Jung coined the term the collective unconscious. And pay attention to dreams too, because this has been something that has been very, very prevalent for me recently. My dream world has been very strong. Even processing this, I want to say, karmic threads or these soul group connections. There are some people that I am not connected to in this life anymore that I might have disconnected with for a reason. Maybe it's an ex-lover, an ex-friend, or this person passed away or whatnot. But they'll come in my dream. And I'm feeling them in a different way. It's almost like, whoa, I'm feeling them on another dimension. Like I can feel like there's another version of myself that is in relationship with them. And I'm sensing that, wow, just like the shadow example with the OA, I can't get away from this person and it's okay. There's a comfort there. It's like, I know I experienced this hard relationship or this intense breakup for a reason. We finished our contract in this life, the way that we're meant to, but we're still impacting each other's consciousness. And they're a piece of the puzzle, right? I'm a piece of theirs and they're a piece of my puzzle. Trust the process. Everything is happening as it's supposed to for you. And that's exciting. And in the moments it's not, maybe it's scary. All emotions have two sides, baby. Polarity dance. On the other side of fear is excitement. Bless the messy, because that is your ticket to freedom. The only way out is through. And I know you can do it, boo, because you're doing it now. Lots of love. Until next time, this is Sarah with the 5D codes. Peace, love, and polarity dance.